Hey everybody, me Joe from Balsa USA. On this episode of Shoptime Live, we're going to be talking about what I use for batteries in my gas airplanes. So stay tuned. Here we go. Okay, so this is the setup I use in all of my gas airplanes. I make sure that I use the same setup across all my airplanes, so that way when I'm at the field and charging, all I have to do is plug in and go. I always use the same settings on my charger. I never have to change anything. That way I don't inadvertently charge a nickel metal hydride pack, say on a LiPo settings or anything like that. So what I go with is always the same. I recommend that you do that. That way at the field you don't have to think about it. If you are going to have multiple chemistry types of batteries, I would make sure that you mark them clearly so you don't inadvertently charge them on the wrong setting. I've seen this happen a lot, and I want to make sure that you stay safe. So this is the setup that I use. I go with the ElectroDynamics 2500 milliamp Lifey packs. I pair those with the 77N ElectroDynamics balanced chargeable switches. We'll talk more about that here in a second. It is going to be required that you use the balanced charger cord. I will show you some more on that when we get to the charger part. I also have the ElectroDynamics tester. This allows me to get the voltage from the packs. It also shows me whether or not they're balanced. And I always use my handy Hitec multifunction X2 high power charger for this setup. This setup is separate in my trailer, and I can bring it right out to my airplanes using extension cords or batteries or however I want to connect, and I'm able to have that right there with my planes. So let me talk a little bit about how this setup works. First of all, you're going to notice on the switches, you've got 4 leads coming off from the ElectroDynamics 77N Nano Ultra switches. Okay, these two black and red leads, these go to your receiver. Okay, if you're only going to use one receiver, you're only going to use one lead. So you'll have an extra lead left over, which is fine. You can use that to power another receiver. You can use it to power accessories if you have them. Whatever it is you need to use it for, that's what that's there for. On this other side, you have your battery connector, which is going to be your positive and your negative connector. And then you're going to notice that you have a 3 cable balance lead. So how this works is, if I'm going to plug this battery into my airplane, I go ahead and I plug in the 3 cable plug, making sure that I have the polarities all matched up properly. And then I take the power lead that's coming off of the pack, and I plug it into the power lead on the same side of the switch. So there you can see I've got that all plugged in. Everything's as it should be. So those 2 leads come off that side. These leads are to your battery. Okay? Then all I need to do is I can take that over and I can plug it right into any port on my receiver. And I have power, and I'm ready to go. Okay, that's it. Again, this lead will be extra if you have a dual receiver, or if you need to power something else, that's what you can use this for. I wouldn't put too much on this, but it is there and it is available. Okay, that's my entire setup. I don't do anything any more fancy than that. And what this setup allows me to do is this setup actually allows me to go in and balance charge my Lifey packs through the switch. It's a full, true balance charge. So you'll see here, if I turn this off and I bring my tester over, I plug my tester in, it gives me the readouts on both cells. This cell is brand new. It's showing me at 6.6 volts, 3.3 volts per cell. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about charging. Like I said earlier in the video, you're going to want to make sure you have one of these ElectroDynamics balanced charger leads. And what that does is that allows you to plug your charger in through your balance cord all the way up, and it comes out to a simple switch connector. So now what I can do is I can plug my charger directly into my switch, and with my Hitec X2 charger, all I have to do is put it in Lifey balance, hit and enter, and it's going to charge that pack, and it's going to completely balance that pack as it charges. This being a brand new pack, it might take it just a little bit to get everything all balanced out and set up, but it's super simple to set this up. Again, on my gas airplanes, this is the only setup I use. Everything is always the same. So I use my Hitec X2 charger. I use my ElectroDynamics 2500 milliamp Lifey packs. I use my 77N Nano switches, which allows me to balance charge right straight through easy every time. And it's the same every time. I don't change my settings on my charger. I don't have to worry about whether or not I have the right battery selected. It's always going to be the same. One of the other things I want to talk about are these ForgetMeNot LEDs that ElectroDynamics offers. All this does is just a simple LED that plugs in to any open port on your receiver. And when you have your switch on, it's going to indicate that you have your switch on. This is going to be a real good way to keep from over discharging batteries. It's going to let you know whether or not your receiver's on. For our airplanes, you can put these down inside the cockpit and kind of hide them. A real good use for this would be any of you that are running upper wing receivers. I know a lot of guys run separate receivers in the wings. You could run this down inside your cockpit, and that way when you had the switch on to your wing receiver, you would have an indication that it is on. Trust me, I've seen a lot of guys lose airplanes because they forgot to plug in their upper receiver. And this is a real easy, simple way to give yourself some notification whether or not that receiver is on. So make sure you check those out as well. So this next kind of quick tip that I'm going to share with you comes from good friends and awesome builders of mine, Ron Pound and Tim Shurek. They were working with some of these packs, and they realized that it was time to figure out a way to kind of insulate them. I actually kind of agree with, I know this, a lot of people do, a lot of people don't. It depends on personal preference. But I always feel like it's a good idea to insulate your power packs. So they were looking around the shop trying to find some foam. And what they came up with is a koozie. We all get these. They hand them out at fly-ins. You see them all over the place. I'm sure if you looked around your house, you have several. And what they discovered is 2 of these packs fit perfectly inside a koozie. And then you can use this for insulating your packs. I think that's a great idea, and I will be using that from this point on. You could put them in there like that, or in most cases, you could feed the lines down and put them through the bottom. And it's a perfect solution for insulating your battery packs. These ElectroDynamics packs fit perfectly down inside there. And now you've got your batteries insulated from the rest of your airplane. I think that's a great idea. Excellent. I hope this clears up any questions you might have on the setup that I use on my gas airplanes. Again, this is the same setup I use on all of my gas airplanes. Everything's always exactly the same so that I don't have to remember what charger and what setting goes with which airplane. Make sure you swing by over to ElectroDynam.com to pick up your switches and batteries. Make sure you check out Hitec Chargers. I've had these for years and have never had any issues with them. This one here happens to be my field charger that goes out to the field with me and is used to charge my planes directly. And this setup for me has been very successful. I have literally had thousands of flights on these airplanes with this exact setup, and I've been able to have these packs last me several seasons before I even feel the need to replace them. One of the things that I'll make sure that I put out there that you have to be aware of is when I usually fly these airplanes with this setup, I give them 3 flights before I charge. Occasionally I will do 4, but I'm all the time using my ElectroDynamics checker to make sure that they are correctly set up and that the voltages are high enough. One of the things that you do have to be wary of with a LiFi pack is the discharge rate. So as an example, a typical LiPo discharge rate goes at a slight angle. A LiFi discharge rate tends to go at a straight line until it discharges and then it falls off the edge of the shelf. So be aware of what you're putting in versus what you're taking out. What I do is I always make sure I pay attention to how many amps I'm putting back in. Keep in mind this setup with these wires, the electrodynamic charger wires, are only going to be rated up to 4 amps. That's not a question of what the battery can take. It's a question of what the charge leads can take. The charge leads with this gauge wire are only rated at 4 amps. So don't charge any higher than 4 amps or you're going to have safety issues. Using this setup over the years, I've had no issues whatsoever. I've had no failed packs. I've had no issues. I've had no puffed batteries, and it works great. Again, as always, thank you very much for watching, and happy building.